In an interview with Ben Stein for the movie Expelled, he stated quite clearly that no one knows how life started and that there's a real possibility that life on this planet may have been seeded or influenced by higher forms of life.
Here's a question. Why doesn't the What You Ought to Know guy actually show Dawkins saying that instead of just telling us he said it? After all, the clip is freely available. Well, you've probably guessed, because Dawkins never said it. So I will show the clip, but before I do, take a look at the transcript. Now read carefully, and I hope you'll notice something odd. Ben Stein asks how heaven and earth got created. Dawkins says, quite rightly, that this was a very slow process. So Stein asks how it got started. Now here Dawkins could have explained about the Big Bang and the condensation of matter from a plasma of energy and the coming together of quantum particles to form atoms, and how space expanded and these atoms were drawn together to form the first stars. But instead he says,
nobody knows how it started.
Now why would Dawkins say that when the start of our universe has been understood since the 1950s? Then Dawkins's explanation gets even stranger. He says we know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life. The origin of life? But the origin of life has nothing to do with the origin of the universe. The two events are separated by about 10 billion years. Has Dawkins gone mad? Or did I miss something? Well, it turns out I did miss something. And when we look at the interview itself, we can see where it's gone missing.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
4 very obvious cuts in both the audio and the video in the space of just a few seconds, taking us from a question about the origin of the universe to an answer about the origin of life. If you saw my video on TV tricks of the trade, and even if you didn't, it's not hard to spot the very clumsy edits here.
Right, how did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
Dawkins could be answering "no one knows" to just about anything, because we don't get to hear what the question was. The giveaway is so clear that this kind of duplicitous editing wouldn't fool anyone. Oh, okay, most people. But that's hardly enough to earn a golden crocoduck. So let's look at what does.
There's a real possibility that life on this planet may have been seeded or influenced by higher forms of life.
Yes, this is the second thing Dawkins was supposed to have stated. Now, Dawkins has already said that life must have started with a self-replicating molecule.
We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
So isn't it odd that he suddenly starts talking about the possibility that we were designed by aliens from another planet? Are we missing something? Once again, yes.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved.
And once again, the question doesn't fit the answer. What do you think of the possibility of intelligent design? Should elicit the answer, well, anything's possible, but it's very unlikely. So if Dawkins's answer is, it could come about in the following way, then the question must have been different. I was going to suggest that Stein's question must have been something like, if there was intelligent design, how might it have come about? But then I came across this interview with Dawkins, in which he told us the question that was put to him.
So when Ben Stein, who was the compere of the infamous Expelled film that some of you may have heard of, asked me in an interview whether I could think of any circumstances in which I could remotely think that intelligent design of life on Earth was plausible.
And of course that fits perfectly with his answer. Now, does it matter how he was led into this question? After all, he did say it was a possibility. Yes, but the conditions that he was given, that he had to come up with some way that intelligent design might have happened, have been cut. After all, I could ask Ben Stein if it's possible Richard Nixon was gay, and if he's honest, he would have to say, yes, of course it's possible. Pat could have been a cover, but would it then be fair to write this headline? Stein claims possible Nixon was gay. And if all Stein did was admit to the possibility if all other options are taken away, then it would be even more of a distortion to write, Stein claims real possibility Nixon was gay. And finally, Stein claims Nixon was gay. And that's where this misquote of Dawkins takes us. From a hypothetical possibility if the option of abiogenesis is taken away, to a possibility that it happened, to a real possibility that it happened.
There's a real possibility that life on this planet may have been seeded or influenced by higher forms of life.
And then to Dawkins saying it actually happened. It's wonderful what you can do with these one-off quotes and a complete disregard for the truth, simply to score a few silly brownie points in support of your religion.
Potholer needs to be filled in on thermodynamics.
I promise this wasn't nominated by me, but Ian Juby refers to me in this video.
Potholer first pulled the open systems argument, claiming that energy coming in from the sun can cause life to arise, and then cites snowflakes and sunflowers as examples.
And this begs exactly the same question I put to the previous nominee. Why is it that Ian doesn't show a clip from my video where I cite snowflakes and sunflowers as examples of how energy from the sun causes life to arise on Earth? He tells people I said this, so why not actually show me saying it? Well, the answer is, of course, because there are no clips of me saying that. Ironically, in trying to criticize a video called Setting Fire to Creationist Strawmen, Juby has set up his own creationist strawman. Ian, here's a bit of advice. In my videos, I always play the clip or show the quote I'm critiquing so that there can be no question that I've misinterpreted or misquoted it or simply made it up out of thin air. So here's what I actually said about sunflowers and snowflakes in response to a nominee called The Atheist Antidote. He claimed the second law of thermodynamics supports creationism because it says the whole universe is running down into complete disorder.
The second law says that the whole universe is running down into complete disorder.
Now I say quite explicitly that I was using the example of snowflakes and sunflowers and geodes to show that there is a tendency for the universe to run down into disorder. No one, apart from creationists, has ever defined the second law as the whole universe running down into complete disorder. After all, we only need to look around us to see that that isn't the case. Plant a sunflower seed and it grows into a flower that can turn to face the sun. When water evaporates and rises haphazardly into the atmosphere, it turns into exquisitely ordered snowflakes. As long as the snowflake eventually melts, the sunflower dies, and the geode eventually gets remelted, then every example of order is in perfect conformity with the second law. Obviously, Ian couldn't find anything wrong with that statement, so he made something up. It's not true, but that's why we have the golden crocoduck.
Energy from the sun melts snowflakes. Then Potholer takes a quantum leap of faith, comparing a snowflake to the sunflower. What?
Once again, Juby doesn't show a clip of me comparing a snowflake to a sunflower because, as you've just seen, he doesn't have one.
What?
From this, he seems to go completely off the rails.
Like saying that because a rock formed by natural processes, we can therefore conclude that the space shuttle can also form by natural processes.
Yeah, good point, Ian. And so, here's Juby's conclusion. And apparently he still thinks he's arguing with something I said.
Snowflakes most certainly do follow the laws of thermodynamics and entropy.
Well, yes, Ian, that's exactly what I spent 5 minutes explaining in a clip that you could quite easily have shown people if you wanted to rebut what I was saying. In fact, reality complies very nicely with the second law of thermodynamics, which says there's a tendency towards disorder in a closed system. And evolution complies very nicely also on 2 counts. First, there is a tendency towards disorder. I know, it's definitely more trouble and more time-consuming to download the videos you're critiquing and find the clips you want to rebut. But at least my subscribers know that they're not being thrown a straw man because I always show them what someone actually says rather than make up some spurious claim about what they said. And if you do that, you're less likely to slip up and get nominated for a golden crocoduck.